It was supposed to be a quiet night. 4 college students, best friends, roommates, lovers, had spent their Saturday laughing, eating, and making memories inside a cozy off-campus home in Moscow, Idaho. The warmth of youth echoed through the halls. There were plans for brunch, study sessions, winter break. They locked the doors. They went to bed. But they never woke up. By dawn on November 13, 2022, a nightmare had unfolded inside that house, so brutal, so senseless, that even seasoned detectives struggled to describe the crime scene. 4 lives stolen, 1 killer vanished, and a town left shattered, searching for answers. This is not just a murder case. It's a wound that never stopped bleeding. Before we dive into today's video, please kindly subscribe for more updates and true crime stories. Your support means a lot. The early morning hours of November 13, 2022, a chilling silence descended upon the quiet college town of Moscow, Idaho. A silence that would soon erupt into one of the most horrifying murder cases in modern American memory. 4 promising University of Idaho students, Ethan Chapin, 20, Xana Kernodle, 20, Madison Mogen, 21, and Kaylee Goncalves, 21, were brutally stabbed to death in their off-campus rental home, a place that should have been their sanctuary. The savage nature of the crime, committed as the victims likely slept, sent shockwaves across the country. The killer had vanished into the night, leaving behind a bloody scene and a deeply shaken community. For nearly 6 weeks, the nation watched as police scrambled for answers, speculating on motives and suspects. Then, in a dramatic turn of events, authorities announced the arrest of Bryan Kohberger, a 28-year-old criminology PhD student at nearby Washington State University in Pullman. The shocking arrest came at his parents' home in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, some 2,500 miles away from the crime scene. What tied Kohberger to the murders, according to prosecutors, was a knife sheath left behind on Madison Mogen's bed. On it, they found touch DNA, which they said matched DNA taken from trash outside Kohberger's family home. More damning details began to emerge. Surveillance footage allegedly showing Kohberger's white Hyundai Elantra
have never before been seen publicly. Like these security videos from a camera on a house near the murder scene. Videos that show a white sedan, a car that investigators believe was driven by Bryan Kohberger, making repeated passes at the King Road house that night before the murders.
Despite the mountain of evidence, Kohberger pleaded not guilty in 2023, setting the stage for what was expected to be a high-profile death penalty trial in August 2025. But now, less than 2 months before jury selection, everything has changed. In a startling development, Kohberger has reportedly agreed to a plea deal that will spare him the death penalty in exchange for admitting guilt to 4 counts of first-degree murder and burglary.
Jury today over the plea deal for Bryan Kohberger, accused of stabbing to death the 4 University of Idaho students. Kohberger was facing death by firing squad if convicted, but he's now agreed to plead guilty at a hearing at this courthouse in Boise tomorrow. At a later hearing, he's expected to be sentenced to 4 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. What is not yet known is how much information about the murders Kohberger will be compelled to reveal.
The reactions have been deeply polarized. Ben Mogen, father of Madison, expressed relief at the closure. We can actually put this behind us and not have these future dates and future things. We get to just think about the rest of our lives and figure out how to do it without Maddie, he told reporters. Similarly, Stacy Chapin, Ethan's mother, told KHQ News that her family supported the deal and would attend the sentencing hearing in Boise. Dragging this out for years would just reopen wounds, she said. But not everyone feels the same. The Goncalves family, in a scathing Facebook post, slammed the prosecutors and the state of Idaho for what they described as a betrayal. We are beyond furious. They have failed us. the Post read. The family said they had only learned of the plea agreement through vague communication on a Friday, and were shocked to discover it was finalized by Sunday, without their formal input. Aubrey Goncalves, Kaylee's youngest sister, wrote a heart-wrenching public letter. Bryan Kohberger facing a life in prison means he still gets to speak, form relationships, and engage with the world. Meanwhile, our loved ones have been silenced forever. The Goncalves family vowed to continue pushing back, stating, "We will not stop fighting for the life that was stolen unjustly."
There was no majority believing that this was acceptable. I want to honor all the police officers, the FBI, and all the people that worked their tail off. The failure is at the court level, 100%. But the men in the boots on the ground and the women that were out there working, I want to honor everything that they did for our children, 100%. The fault is in leadership and the people that you place this evidence upon. They were weak. They decided to play God and decide what this man's decision should be, and not a jury, not his peers. They, so that's where we are today.
To remove the death penalty from the case, despite their arguments about improper procedures by prosecutors. In the wake of the plea deal leak, the Kohberger family released a brief statement through attorney Martin Soto-Diaz, asking for privacy and respect, and declining to comment further. This marks a stunning turn in a case that captivated and horrified the nation, where 4 young lives full of promise were taken in a flash of unimaginable violence. If the plea goes through as expected, Bryan Kohberger will likely spend the rest of his life behind bars, spared from execution, but forever entombed by concrete and the burden of 4 stolen futures. But for the families of Ethan, Xana, Madison, and Kaylee, the emotional sentencing ahead may offer closure, or just another chapter in a long and painful journey. Inside the mind of Bryan Kohberger. He studied crime to understand it. He may have committed it to feel it. Before the world knew his name, Bryan Christopher Kohberger sat in classrooms discussing the behavior of serial killers. He asked sharp questions, always leaning into the darker corners of human psychology. He wasn't just any student. He was working on a PhD in criminology, a field dedicated to understanding the minds of violent offenders. But what no one could have predicted was that one of those minds might be his own. Born in 1994, Bryan Kohberger grew up in the quiet Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania. He was described by some former classmates as awkward, highly intelligent, and intensely curious, especially about criminal behavior. But he was also known to struggle socially. In high school, he was reportedly bullied and isolated. At one point, he turned to drugs and lost a dramatic amount of weight before getting clean and enrolling in community college. Kohberger later earned a master's degree in criminal justice at DeSales University, where he studied under forensic psychologist Dr. Catherine Ramsland, an expert on serial killers and the author of numerous books on violent crime, including a biography of Dennis Rader, the BTK killer. Kohberger was deeply drawn to understanding what drives people to kill, often expressing a desire to work in law enforcement or criminal profiling. At the time, no one suspected he was plotting anything. Months before the killings, Kohberger posted a chilling survey online, targeting people who had committed violent crimes. In it, he asked about their thoughts and feelings during the commission of the crime. How did you feel after committing the crime? What were you thinking before and after? What was your emotional response? To many, it was an academic exercise, but in hindsight, it reads like something more, a blueprint. A man trying to get inside the mind of a killer, possibly because he already knew what it felt like. Investigators believe this wasn't a random act of violence. It was planned. One surviving roommate, DM, later told police that she saw a masked man dressed in black walk past her room after hearing cries and a thud upstairs.
As soon as I stepped in the house, I was like, oh, something is so not right.
Friends Josie Louterin and Emily Allen and her boyfriend Hunter Johnson were the first on the scene.
When Dylan had called, I didn't think it was urgent. When we got there, Dylan and Bethany had exited the house. They frightened, just kind of like just hands on their mouth, like I don't know what's going on type thing.
I set foot in the house and immediately Hunter was like, get out, somebody call 911.
Johnson was the first to realize they were in a crime scene. You can hear him on the 911 call, ushering everyone outside.
Okay. Also found evidence of him changing license plates and disposing of garbage at odd hours. In mid-December, he drove cross-country with his father, returning to his parents' home in Pennsylvania. A strange move, considering he knew law enforcement was closing in. On December 30th, 2022, at around 1 a.m., FBI agents and state police descended on the Kohberger residence and took him into custody. At the time of his arrest, he reportedly asked, "Did you arrest anyone else?" A chilling question, suggesting he either wanted to confuse investigators or was hiding something more. A later search of Kohberger's Washington apartment revealed hair strands, a disposable glove, a computer tower, possible blood traces, a black Nike shoe with a diamond pattern on the sole.
Which they decided they could get an arrest warrant.
At that point, they made the arrest of Bryan Kohberger, and they got a separate, essentially a search warrant for his DNA.
And when investigators compared his DNA to the DNA on the knife sheath, they say it was a statistical match, at least 5.37 octillion times more likely to be Kohberger's than anyone else.
But it remains to be seen whether Kohberger will ever tell the complete truth. The question lingers, did he want to be caught, to be studied like the killers he once read about, or did he think he could become something more, something infamous? Justice is never simple. Closure is never guaranteed. As this case nears its legal end, the nation is left grappling with the reality that no sentence, death or life, can repair the damage. No court ruling can fill the empty chairs at family dinners or heal the fractures in a community. The investigation may be ending, but the grief will echo for decades. For the Chapins, the Kernodles, the Mogens, and the Goncalveses, the story never really ends. They are left with the photographs, the birthdays that will never be celebrated, the texts that will never be answered. They are left with the question that every parent dreads but never stops asking, why? As the courtroom doors finally close, the story will live on. Not in the fame the killer may have wanted, but in the fierce love of the people he could not silence. Thank you for watching. Please consider subscribing for more true crime documentaries and in-depth cases.